Okay, good morning, everybody. Aloha. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Rob Hack. I think most of you know me by this point. My company is Insight Inter-Asia. I represent the Hawaii Pacific Export Council today. HPEC is a local nonprofit here in Honolulu based at the Foreign Trade Zone. And we help companies export, and we teach them about exporting and then help them through the exporting process. We are able to put on this series of seminars due to a very generous grant we received from DBET. And DBET in turn receives their grant from SBA in Washington, D.C. So we have lots of people to thank, including DBET, who will speak in a second. I'd also like to thank the Foreign Trade Zone people who allow us to use this wonderful facility here. I'll introduce our panelists in a few minutes, but of course, thank you to them. I'm sure you'll all want to thank Jimmy Chan for his Hawaiian chips, because I can hear him crunching all back in there. So they must be very delicious. And we also have some chocolates from Shakalea we'll pass out in a second too. So thanks to everybody for being here. With that, could I bring up Jamie Lum from DBET to say a few words about the HiSTEP program.
Thank you, Rob. Aloha and good morning, everyone. I am Jamie Lum with the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, otherwise known as DBED. And just thank you all for coming this morning. As Rob already mentioned, this session is part of what we call our Hawaii State Trade Export and Expansion Program, which is HiSTEP. And these series of training seminars that we partner with the Hawaii Pacific Export Council to do is just part of the overall program that we have. So we have three components of HiSTEP. Well, first of all, let me backtrack a little. As Rob said, the funds we receive come from the Small Business Administration. It is a national program, so all of the states are eligible. It's a competitive grant. So, and actually they just put out another funding announcement, so we're working on a proposal for 2020. And the whole goal of the program is really to get more companies exporting, and those that are already exporting to increase export sales, and then to also reach out and to get more market penetration around the world for Hawaii companies. So those are the goals of the program. As I said, there are three components. So one is our export readiness part of the program, which we have these training sessions, and then we also, through our partners, HPEC, the Small Business Development Center, and we have Joe here, as well as Lori, and I think Mick is here, and they've help out in our program, their partners, and then Innovate Hawaii, Erin is here, and we also work with the Mink Center. So these organizations help as business advisors for our companies. So that's another part. They can help companies look at their operations or their marketing plans, their export plans, and help you in developing that and put together an export plan for you to go out and be successful with your company. So that's one part of the program. Another part, we have our company assistance, which is funding that you can get directly from us, and that's based on your export plan. So that is competitive. The funds have already been given out for 2019, so if we are successful in getting another grant from the SBA, we'll probably be putting out another call for applications for this part of the program towards the end of the year. But basically, it can help you in funding airfare to go to travel for a trade show. It can pay for trade show expenses. If you have a product that needs testing to be able to enter into a particular market, it can pay for some of those costs. It can pay for some translation costs for a website or some of your marketing materials. So those are the kinds of things that the company assistance can be used for. In the past, we've limited it to a maximum of $7,500 per company. We'll just have to see what, number one, if we get a grant, how much we get before we set, limits on that. But so that's the company assistance component. The last one are the Hawaii pavilions, and so we go into various trade shows and we get a bunch of booths, and then we go out and recruit companies to participate under the Hawaii umbrella. So we do have 2 coming up in June. We're going to the International Biotech Show and Outdoor Retailer, and plug for that. I have one more booth left because we had a company that had to cancel out, so if anyone is interested, let me know. And then our probably our most popular, most attended, highest attended trade show is the Tokyo International Gift Show in Tokyo in September. So, and many of these companies that are here, in fact, probably all of you have been there, so they can speak to that. But we find that that's a very powerful way to go into a show under the Hawaii brand, and all of the companies, a lot of them end up, kind of working together. I mean, everybody has their own individual company and product, but they're also able to share experiences with each other and work together. So we subsidize the cost for, well, we cover most of the costs for that trade show, and we, charge a participation fee, and then companies have to pay their own airfare and hotel and so forth. But again, we try to make it an affordable way for companies to go to trade shows, and then as well as come in together as a group. So I think that's basically it. There are requirements to be eligible for the program. You have to be a small business. You have to meet the SBA standards of a small business, which most companies in Hawaii will not have a problem with. You do have to have a product that is a U.S.-made product. So it has to meet the standard of being at least 51% of a U.S. content. That's something that SBA has required just in this last year to make sure that companies that participate meet that. And, register to do business in Hawaii and so forth. So those are the main criteria. And so if you want to, Rob has our website, which is invest.hawaii.gov, and you go under the exporting tab, and you can find out all of the information about HiSTEP. But I will be here if anyone has any questions. And again, thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you to all of our partners for all that they do for this program, and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Next, a couple words from Joe Burns of the Small Business Development Center.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everyone. I think many of you are familiar with the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, so I'm not going to give you the sales pitch. But I did want to give you 2 more points that weren't mentioned. One is our services are free, so when you sign up with us, we'll work with you just as much as we possibly can to help you maintain your success or achieve your success in your business. And then the second point is one of the things we do work with companies on quite well is export financing. You have a good export plan, you've been to the shows, you finally get the order, and oh my gosh, there's no money to pay anybody to make your products or to get the materials. So obviously you want to have your export financing plan in place before you actually get that order. So this is something that we can help you with. The SBA has some pretty good export loans, and of course there are other ways to do that as well. So definitely give us a call or go on our website. We'll be happy to help you. Thanks very much.
Before you go to your trade show, what size you're actually working on. We'll talk about some more of these details in a minute, but this is sort of what we're looking at. So you can see when I'm in here, there's not much space to display your product. So you really have to be very judicious about the way you use your your space accordingly, okay? I'm going to leave this here, and you guys can use that. How's our camera? Thank you. Let me introduce our wonderful panel. Lots of trade show experience. I'm just going alphabetically. Jimmy Chan, he brought the chips. He's from the Hawaiian Chip Company. I strongly recommend you guys visit his facility in Kalihi. Maybe talk a minute about that real quickly.
Yeah, so basically what you're eating are chips that were just made, fresh made, right off the production line, brought them down here. And and then you can visit the factory Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you know, basically the goal for this is to turn that factory into a world-class destination, and a lot of that's influenced from my experiences in trying to export. So I'll get more into that later.
Aaron Lau from Lau Lau Woodworks and Simply Wood Studios. Aaron has to leave around 10 o'clock. He's going to Maui to sell some of his products, but he makes these wonderful koa-based pens.
Aaron has one.
Oh, Aaron has one. Great.
Unfortunately, I forgot it. It's all packed right now, so I don't have any of my pens.
Here's some up here if you want to point to anybody. And maybe tell us a little bit about your business and then where to find you and the pens.
So I personally manufacture the pens, and I have 3 retail stores that are called Simply Wood Studios, and the stores primarily sell to visitors coming to Hawaii. So we have them in the Waikiki area.
Great. Next is Tom Sirivata from Lahana Jewelry. Lahana makes fantastic jewelry here on Oahu. Tom, can you explain a little bit about your business and where to find the products?
Actually, I'm manufactured right here in downtown, Bishop Street, and I actually do business to business, so it's nothing like for wholesale or anything like that. But I just want to see the other side of the wholesale business. So manufacture is to wholesale. So, but my trade is more for manufactured directly to the consumer. So that's what my plans are.
And you're doing a lot more in Japan recently.
Yes. So I'm actually doing a lot of small show as well as a big show, like a hula festival show and stuff like that. So.
Great, thank you. Then, our last but not least, Aaron Uehara is president of Chocolea in Manoa. They make chocolates and they are exporting peace to the world, one chocolate at a time. Is that the new tagline? Please tell us about your business.
Hi, everyone. Our mission is bringing peace to our world, one chocolate at a time. You got it, Rob. And we actually make everything right behind our store, or right in the same building as our store in Manoa. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Instagram, we're Chocolea Hawaii, and we actually just use chocolates as a way to sweeten relationships and kind of bring awareness to Hawaii and bring people together, because chocolate usually makes people happy.
That's true. Great. Now, the reason I have asked these 4 wonderful panelists to be here today is because I know that they have a tremendous amount of experience in trade shows. And I've seen them there and seen them in action, and I know that they do well. But you don't do well necessarily your first time. So I've asked them to come and let's talk about things that they've learned over time, over the years, visiting different trade shows, visiting the same trade show over and over again. What do you gather, the information that you learn over time? So we're just going to go through and talk about some of these topics. I have a very brief presentation that I'll go through, and it'll sort of feed our talking points. We're fairly informal here today, so if you have any questions, please just interrupt and we'll run over to you with a microphone. Madison over here has a microphone, she'll bring it to you, and ask away. Same with the online audience, please feel free to ask a question at any time. I look at this as there's 3 distinct aspects of a trade show, what to do when you're thinking about a trade show. The 3 aspects are before the show, during the show, and after the show. They're all equally important. I think we should be concentrating on what to do before, during, and after, but plan it well ahead of time. So before the show, this is something that I see a lot of US companies don't get this right, is a very simple thing about starting to adopt a certain date format. Around the world, we have different countries, different cultures use months, day, the year differently. So for example, today could be 5/9/19. But if you're in Europe, you would think of that as September 5th, right? So make it simple, start using a kind of a more international format that nobody can really make that mistake. The other thing I try to teach people is once you leave this country, this size paper doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. The 8.5 by 11, what we call letter size paper, is not used anywhere else in the world except in this country. Everybody will use a standard format called A4, which is a little bit thinner and slightly longer. Please start using that, because if you print brochures here in Honolulu or in Hawaii before you go to Japan, and you print it on letter size paper, once you get it to a customer in Japan, there's nothing they can do with it because it doesn't fit in their files or anything. So they look at it, they smile, make you feel good about it, and then as soon as you're not there, they throw it away, right? So what's the point of spending all that money on these flyers, right? Try to get it done on A4 paper. Also, you have to start using international means of measurement. As I said earlier, we have a 10-foot booth, but 10 feet doesn't, the average Japanese person, for example, I'm going to unfairly pick on Japan because we're mostly talking about Japanese trade shows, but outside of this country, most people do not understand what is 10 feet, right? It's all in meters. So 10 feet more approximately equals about 3.3 meters, whereas that inside dimension over there is 3 meters. That's what we need to start thinking about. When you label your products, you're going to label them in grams and milliliters and things like that, right? If you're sending 24 ounces of something to Japan, nobody knows what that means. In fact, I find in this country, nobody really even understands ounces, even though we use it constantly. I'm not even really sure how many ounces are in a gallon. Most people don't even know that, right? So these are the kinds of things we really need to focus on. These are just some international conventions. Booth fixtures. Before you go to a trade show, figure out, do you need lights? Lights can be very expensive. Do you need internet at the trade show? Meaning, are you going to have some kind of a screen where you're going to show some live video demonstration? Thank you. What kind of tables do you need? I set up that table, that table over there, we measured as a 5-foot table. Are you taking your own table? Probably not. You're probably renting it from the people who are running the trade show. What size is that table? Are you putting a tablecloth on it? So measure that table, measure the tablecloth. Do they fit? These are all things that you have to contemplate before you go to the trade show. The literature rack, meaning your brochures and flyers and pamphlets, would it even fit 8.5 by 11 paper if you took it, right? I've seen that happen before, where lots of American companies will bring these brochures and they won't even fit in the rack that are meant for A4 or A5 or B4 type paper. So please look for that sort of thing. Do you need chairs? Are chairs provided? Are you the type of person who has a difficult time sitting, or you can't stand for a long time, you have a back problem, what have you? Do you need chairs? Well, figure that out. Some people like chairs that sit very high, right? So you really only have to kind of lean down like a bar stool. That's available at many of these trade shows, but please look for that. A lot of trade shows, you just buy the raw space when you get the contract from the trade show vendor, and it doesn't include carpeting. Often, I've been to trade shows like that. So you need to figure that out. Do I have to provide carpeting? Usually there's a vendor as part of the trade show alliance there that provides carpeting, but it can be separate. So make sure if you're buying a booth package from the trade show vendor, that they're telling you whether there's carpeting involved. I've seen that many, many times. Do you need to have a meeting table? Is your business the type where you want people to come into the booth and sit down and you talk more informally, sit back and have a cup of coffee or soda or something like that? So do you need space and have a meeting table inside of your booth? Think about that. And then, of course, signage. On the front of the booth, if you're looking into the booth out here, there would probably be some space for you to put some signage out here, right? But make sure, because sometimes it's included, sometimes it isn't. If you're at an international trade show, would you want the name of your company in Japanese or just in English or both? You can often do both. So just please ask the trade show vendor about that. Any questions so far before we move on? Quickly, some things to watch out for. What's the power? I've seen that very often. Even in the same country, there can be different power. We used to see that more in Japan. North and South Japan had some different power requirements. Unions in various countries, even states, like say San Francisco, for example, has very strong unions about who can physically carry your booth equipment and things into your booth. You're not allowed to carry your own stuff in. Somebody from the union has to bring it in. So keep an eye on that. Learn these panels that would be on the wall. These are kind of a poster board thick kind of material that they assemble the walls of, and there's aluminum racking here. And these walls have various sizes. And these racks can make it difficult to put a poster across, and you wind up getting a lump in your poster there if you string it across these panels. So we need to keep an eye on what are the dimensions of these panels. So if you bring posters or other things that they kind of fit nicely inside those panels. Very common problem. Always be prepared. Meaning, when you go to a trade show, there's going to be all kinds of little things that pop up, and you're sort of isolated at this facility, and it's hard to run out. If you've ever been to Japan, you can run to Daiso or kind of one coin store somewhere and get some masking tape or things like this. But this is just a little toolkit I've seen people assemble over the years that they take with them to trade shows. It includes a little bit of Velcro, some scissors, pliers, screwdriver, a little multi-tool type thing, some hooks to hang things, lots of business cards. You can never have enough business cards, a bowl or some receptacle for people to leave their business cards so that you can track who actually came to the booth. I mean, that's sort of the major reason you're at the trade show. So some mechanism to collect the business cards and then record the business cards and get them into your database so you can use them. A nice lanyard, maybe with your company logo or something like that for the trade show pass. Sometimes you go to a trade show, you just get a cheap little piece of string that they give you, and I just don't think it looks very professional, right? You have a nice corporate lanyard or just something that looks better. Lots of people, especially ladies, need Band-Aids for blisters on their shoes, and I've seen that many, many times. Lots of miserable ladies after 3 or 4 days of walking around or standing up for 10 hours a day. They get quite crabby, and having some Band-Aids around can make the staff a little happier. Just things that I've seen like that. So let me jump in real quick. Let's go down this way. Yeah. Pat, are there any things that you guys have seen?
So what I normally do when I do my trade shows in the US and in Japan is before I go, I always go on Google Maps and I look for the nearest hardware store to the location, just in case I need to buy track lights or something like that. And then I always look for the closest electronics store, because Japan, sometimes I'll forget the adapter because they don't have a 3-prong adapter sometimes. But yeah, everything that Rob was saying, I keep all my trade show stuff in one suitcase and I leave it in storage. And then when I'm about to leave, then I just pull it out of storage.
Well, for me, I kind of got it easy because now I have the office there, so I have a 5 cabinet. So all the show stuff, that's all in there. So every now and then we just have to check it to see what we need to refill. Whatever Rob is saying, those are very important and you need to have it because you don't want to get out in the middle of the shows and then look for that stuff. And that's going to cost you another member to go out there and trying to get it. So that's what I would do. I would actually kind of have a checklist on those before the show start. That's what I would do.
Please.
So when you travel, this is what we also in future, Tom is going to expand to mainland too, in Japan. Because of the amount of luggage he has, he always needs a van. So he always rents a van. So you have to also consider, like in Japan, all these trains, local trains are really, really convenient. You can go anywhere far out into the countryside, but the amount of stuff that you're going to carry, you got to also consider how you're going to move around. And I think Tom pretty much has that already pretty much instinctively calculated where to go, where to load, where to unload. All that thing comes in the parking lot. And all that kind of stuff is also, when you have a lot of products, that comes pretty much, you want that kind of thing to have it in your head, how to get discounts for the streets, how to get a better deal for the cars.
Well, that's a very good point. When you're out in a foreign country especially, and you're schlepping around a whole bunch of, let's just say, stuff, to go to a trade show, some of it could be your valuable product, but others could just be booth supplies and posters and what have you. Things get banged around and what have you. So you have to contemplate that ahead of time and have the proper equipment. Like if you need rolling suitcases or you need little carts with bungee cords that you can strap. It's all different. All 4 of these individuals will have different products, right? They have different things that they need.
We have the benefit where we can actually bring our product because our products is so expensive. Whereas Jimmy and Aaron, they have to ship all their products through distributors and stuff. So, yeah. So I bring everything in 2 suitcases. I don't know, Tom has a lot more, but yeah. So I have to look, I actually go on the train with 2 suitcases sometimes, but.
Yeah, especially the rush hour with 3 suitcases. It's not fun.
You gotta plan around the rush hour.
How about, I want to make sure we get Erin because I know she has a real attention for detail. So tell us what you are thinking about before a show. Like, what are you taking?
Can I ask a question?
Please.
How many of you in here have never done a show and you're actually looking at doing a show? I just want to know what kind of audience we're speaking to. Can you just raise your hand really quick? Okay, how many of you have done shows before? Oh, okay. I was just thinking, practice here if you've never done it. Like do a pop-up at another friend's business or do a pop-up in your made in Hawaii, thank you. Or even doing like those kinds of fairs here, because that's how you'll get your first basic checklist with all those things that you forget. Like Scotch tape, and then you make friends with the booth next to you. And then you start building your list. And then from there, when you go up, I know for international, I didn't know what to expect. And so my first time was just watching other people. And now with the internet, you can just like search all these shows that Jamie folks were talking about and look at what other people have. And I think that already gives you a good running start to making your list, because I never thought about lights. They were just always there. But when I do a new show now, I'm not sure if there's lights. So it's good to keep coming to these kinds of things and practicing what you can here, and then looking online or even going up to the country or to the state that you're looking at doing these kinds of shows at, and not even participating, but just being an attendee and walking around. That's pretty huge.
So, from the most organized to the least organized, you know, when I set up my shows here locally, that's exactly what my booth looks like. I don't even bring a banner sometimes, and I just dump products on the table. But you know, again, if you're going to make that investment and go do a show elsewhere, you want to present a little better than that, and you know, especially where people aren't familiar with your products. And like Aaron mentioned, it's a logistical nightmare because part of our presentation is heavy on sampling. So to bring up samples of chips for everybody that's going to come through that show, when you got over 100,000 people coming through one show, it's just not feasible. So you're passing out tiny little samples of chips and hoping it lasts for the whole week. But then at the same time, if some, you know, the buyer of the Imperial Hotel shows up, you don't want to just give them a little piece of chip and tell, hey, enjoy the crumbs, you know? So trying to bring up enough decent sized samples, kind of like what you just got to try, is something that we need to really plan ahead for. And again, you know, for samples of big cases of chips, we can't carry them through the trains. Can't even fit them in a taxi. So we gotta set up logistics ahead of time. And a lot of that comes from having the logistics already in place and using whatever distributors we have to line up those logistics for us to make sure that the product gets to that booth. Because, again, when you're dealing with big products like that, you know, if you're just carrying a couple of cases, you can walk in. But a lot of these shows are union or whatever. The moment they see you with a cart, you know, it's like, hey, don't touch it. You know, you gotta arrange through their organizers on how to get your products to the booth. And then what Aaron said about going and practicing, that's also really good. For us, we've done some really elaborate booths. So again, that's my setup, but we've also set up stuff like a boxing ring inside a booth and done a hot sauce battle and that kind of stuff. And we actually set up the display in our office, like, and timed us how long it's going to take to put up, how long it's going to take to break down, and then work the logistics and actually practice at our office. So.
When you guys are traveling now, say particularly to Japan, to TIGS or another show, are you getting a local SIM card? How are you handling data, internet, phone calls?
I found the cheapest way to go is to go to Don Quixote here. Go to HIS in Don Quixote and you rent it for 7, 10, or 14 days, and it's much cheaper than renting a Wi-Fi hotspot in Japan.
Okay, good. Another quick point, before you get on a plane, go to Japan or another foreign country, tell your bank that you're doing that. So when you make your first charge at the hotel or a bus or something in Japan, it's not rejected and you're standing there in the middle of nowhere with the rain pouring down and all your suitcases and product, and you're not allowed to use your credit card, right? Let the bank know that you're about to leave the country and you'll be gone for a week or what have you. How do you, let's start for a second. Again, how do you notify customers, or do you notify customers that you're actually coming to a trade show, you're having a trade, you're going to Tokyo International Gift Show, for example? Do you tell people ahead of time?
So in the beginning, I kept forgetting to do that because I've been so busy trying to get the product, make the pens, and then organize everything. And then, I just slipped my mind. But actually, when I started doing it before the trade shows, it was very helpful. So it's a small time thing to do, or you just send an email to your potential customers or the ones that you've already met or talked to, and tell them that you're coming. You know, send out an email a month in advance, and then another one maybe 2 weeks in advance.
You do that in English?
I do that in English and in in Japan I do it in Japanese, yes.
Good.
But when I go travel to trade shows in the mainland, I definitely do it in English, obviously.
Well, for me, I have a partner there, so it's easier. So normally before the show start, we normally will have some kind of flyer out there to all our return client, and then we'll give them notice when they're coming. And for me, I also have like providing the after service. So my client, whoever bought anything from me, they need to get it clean. So that's an opportunity for them to come by to get a free service. So that's how I try to catch my other way of making a business on that. So of course, letting them know ahead of time is very important, because you can get a VIP kind of service too at the same time, because they will tell you, oh yeah, I'm coming to see you today, or something like that when the shows come or whatever. So that's very important. You need to notify them that how many days you're going to be there and what show you're going to be there. It helped a lot. So
Good. When you go to a trade show, you will have a booth number, and every show will have a different system for monitoring or naming the booths. But say, for example, your booth might be B9 in Hall 3 or the East Hall or something like that. But know that information so you can tell your customers ahead of time and use it in your social media posts about the event, and tell everybody, hey, we're going to be in Korea from June 6th to June 9th at COEX in Seoul, and our booth is C11 in the West Hall. I mean, that's all information that's really important. But I think it's critical because people will actually read that and people will come and see you. Okay. Any comments on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good idea, and actually one of the things that works well for us is not just meeting with them during the trade show, because there's a lot going on, but making another trip and another meeting to meet with these guys that you meet at these trade shows when they don't have the distraction of the trade show, because again they're walking through thousands of other booths, so it's really hard to stand out and just be like, make a big impression while you're standing at your booth or in a meeting room. But if you can actually find the time to go have a meal or some coffee or something, that's been the most impactful deals for my company.
I think you have good advice, Jimmy. Very detailed. What I wanted to bring up was how Jamie was talking about the export plan, or that you need to work with like the Small Business Development Center or Patsy Mink or even HPEC and build the plan to get that kind of HiSTEP grant. That plan is what I actually use to stay focused on the trade show, and that gives me the running start of if the trade show is worth it or not for my company, because it's not for everybody. And which country you go to, we're talking about Japan, but it doesn't mean you have to go to Japan. It's just that that helps you kind of align your business with where you want to go. And then after I finished that, it was so easy because I basically passed that to my distributor. And I said, here are the goals we're going to hit. This is what I'm investing. And this is the return I'm expecting. How are we going to hit this? And then using all the things I said in that plan, I actually have to follow through now. So, I'm calling them saying, what interviews can you get me? Can you get us on TV? Can you get us on ads? What space are you going to get us? How do we know we're going to hit these sales? Am I going to have a refrigerated display case for chocolates? It's too hot. I make sure it's worth it because it's not a trip, it's work too. So when I go up there, I want to make sure that it was worth it to come back and be able to say, like, yeah, I can invest in doing that again, and not feel bad about it. So the plan actually really helped for me to know my purpose of being there, so that I'm pretty focused. And then that's how I thought of things like Jimmy had mentioned, was I have no time to talk to anybody because I'm saying sample, 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 hello, 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 chocolate, chocolate. And then like people come by, I don't have any time to talk to them. So it is good to schedule those meetings in advance or on another trip or after. And like you said, over the meal and a translator, we're able to get so much done in 1 hour as opposed to my like 60 something emails where I'm still not sure what we were talking about back and forth sometimes. So that makes a huge difference. And then your whole trip is packed and well worthwhile with all the people you need to meet and talk to, and even the people that have been coming to the shows to just say, hey, I'm going to be there. And I just wanted to say hi again because they're helping spread the word for you wherever they are. So
You bring up a very good point, though, about using your agent or distributor, if you have one. They're an integral part of your program there, and you should be giving them metrics to live by, right? I expect this from this show. I'm spending X amount of dollars. I need this from you guys. Is that a fair way to put it? Because you each have a different sort of agent representation, right? Some maybe don't need an agent that much, but your product really needs an agent because of importation and what have you. So, any comments on that?
yeah, I think it's all about how you say it. I kind of said like we're expecting this, we're expecting that, but it really is a team because that's your staff wherever you are. And even if you don't have an agent, I wasn't allowed to touch the cash registers. So I had to learn to make friends with the cashiers and say, okay, what do you need to make this go faster? What help do you need? What am I allowed to do? I'm not allowed to touch the money. So I had to learn one line, which was, do you have a point card? And that helped speed up the system for them. Like I would just ask everybody, do you have a point card? Do you have a point card? Do you have a point card? And then it helped that team. So it's like learning those things just by doing it. But then the next time, now I know ahead of time when I go what they need help with and what I can help them with. And then what are those things I absolutely am not allowed to do or can't do. And then I tell them, hey, I need your help with this. So for the cash register, we were in a very tight space last year. And so this year I said, is there any way that cash register can be closer to the customers? Because otherwise the customer would give the money and see the cashier walk away. And it was like, where's she going? Where's she going? But our cash register was so far that, the customer wasn't sure, like, is she coming back? When is she coming back? And it's, a tight space to walk through. So actually, communicating, whether it's your distributor or just the people that you're going to work with there, or if you're going to take your team there, you all have to be on the same page on what you're expecting and what you want to get out of it together. Otherwise, it's not a win-win. And then it's just win for you or win for them. But
And if you hire translators, please take an hour or two at least to train your translators on your product or your service, because they don't know what the ins and outs like you do of your product. So please spend some time with them and teach them the keywords and the key points of your product that you're trying to sell. Any other comment?
For me, setting goals for a specific trade show, it's a little tough because you're always going to be disappointed. And again, that's why we do this. We have lofty expectations. But it's, to me, it's more, I look at it more as part of the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture, and how many meaningful contacts you get, because it was easy to get real excited when you got 500 business cards that you got to follow up with. But then, after 4 trade shows, you find out that of those 500, you have maybe 3 or 4 meaningful ones, and by meaningful, they're really good. They're really good accounts. So, I think for me, it's just really about looking at the bigger picture and not trying to, hammer on my distributor to necessarily, hey, how come we didn't do, this didn't even pay for my trip, and a lot of times it doesn't. But you give it time, and it's become worth it for my company. And even just from a learning standpoint, the biggest value for me at the trade shows, what I'm looking for is just reaction on my products, because I'm still growing my business here in Hawaii. I've still got plenty of room to grow. And to me, the other export opportunity is the 9 million tourists coming here a year. So if they carry it back for me, I don't have to worry about logistics and import fees and all that. So for me, I'm actually up there just trying to figure out, all right, how are my products being received? How is my presentation being received? Is this going to lure this customer base to my factory in Hawaii. So, and to date, that's been doing really well. So.
So to elaborate on what Jimmy said, like my product is different from theirs. So they need distribution, they need agents and things like that because they have to deal with exporting rules and all that kind of stuff, health issues and ingredients and all that stuff. Whereas for me, it's different. I can roll up in my suitcase, pull out my product. That's the fortunate thing. But it's also a harder sell for me because my price point is a lot higher. You can't eat my stuff. But what Jimmy was saying about trade shows, you can't look at it. I personally don't set goals, to be honest, because I don't want to be grouchy throughout the trade show if I'm not hitting my goals. So I don't set goals. What I'm there for is actually to be the face of my company. Because when I do trade shows, for instance, I was doing trade shows in San Francisco twice a year. And as I did those trade shows, I would get reorders all the time because people would come back to just see me. The companies will come to see me. When that trade show was canceled and they no longer did that, I dropped a lot of my Bay Area accounts because I'm the face of the company. So trade shows, even though you're not making a lot of sales or anything like that to begin with, you're building a relationship, especially in Japan. I think this year is going to, if I do get accepted, 7th year I'm going to be there. But every year I'm there, I see the same people. If they haven't bought from me previous years, then they'll finally buy something from me after 7 years. But you have to keep going back to these customers and these businesses because they're going to remember who you are. And no matter if you're selling millions of chips like Jimmy or whatever, people will like to see Jimmy, And I opened the stores in Waikiki because I wouldn't be able to have any product penetration for my stuff in Japan if people didn't know what my product was to begin with. So a lot of the Japanese tourists have seen me throughout the years because I've been doing this for 17 years. And you get into Japanese magazines, you get into other magazines in the mainland or whatever, and then you know what your target audience is. And then you think, okay, maybe I'll try a trade show in Canada because I get a lot of Canadians that buy my stuff. So doing shows or art festivals or craft fairs or whatever in Hawaii in the tourist market will help you navigate where you want to promote your business elsewhere outside of Hawaii.
I guess the same with Aaron. I don't have any agent. For me, I travel more like an artist. So I've been there, that's when the clients come. Especially most of my pieces is all customized. So what it is I try every single show there was in Japan, from Kobe to Nagoya, pretty much all around the country. So, and every single prefectures, the customers are so different. So you have to like target what you want to do in Japan, what kind of products that particular prefecture actually need. I guess it's totally different from food, I guess. If it tastes good all over. But jewelry is totally different. Some, like in Tokyo, most of the pieces, like, you see like comparison from Nagoya, piece of jewelry is small. Most of Japanese people will like, right? When you go to like Tokyo, I make mine like real big because it's like a statement, Yeah, bling bling, it's like a fashion statement. Yeah, so you have to do the show in order to find out what your result is and what kind of products you're going to be putting out there. I think it's very important for you to brand your name out there too. So for mine, I have to keep going back, more than 5 times a year just to be there, because my clients want something special, then I have to do it. So that's my take on my business goal. So maybe some of you folk might consider trying something like this first before you put all your food in one basket, because it takes a lot of money to fly back and forth, you know. So, yeah, so that's my take.
Okay, thank you. Before, I have a question that just came in online. Before I read that question, I'd like to remind everybody our standard disclaimer here is that this is a public forum. We have essentially three audiences. Obviously, the live audience here. There's an online webinar audience, mostly comprised of Neighbor Island attendees in the webinar, and then we record the videos for later upload to our YouTube channel. Any question you ask will be part of a public forum, and it's possible that your face could wind up on the video. So please understand that before you ask a question. But we do have a question that came in. What about purchasing an attendee list before this show? Have you ever done that? Or pre-setting appointments with qualified buyers? Have you done any of that, or has your agent helped you with any of that? And at the shows that you've been to, are they scanning the badges with QR codes so you can find out who came by your booth later electronically, or how are you monitoring? That is expensive, I know.
That's mostly on the mainland. I didn't see that in Japan.
I've seen it in Japan, but it's more difficult because of the structure of the names, right? Scanning that in, but it's possible. And certainly if you go to Singapore or Hong Kong, you'll still see it.
The lists are expensive, and that scanning for the barcode, the scan for the barcode on your tag and stuff like that, I think it was like $3,000 when I was going to Seattle at one point. So if you're not considering doing high volume transactions at this point, I would suggest not doing stuff like that, especially if you're going to the trade show for the first time. So I would just keep an open mind when you go to the trade show for the first time, and don't expect to make a killing on it. And if you buy those lists, a lot of time those lists don't amount to much, honestly. But you can keep milking that list later on. You can keep sending them emails even if they don't attend it until they tell you to stop. But
What kind of email do you send ahead of time, or social media? I can tell. I know there's going to be a wide difference here on social media. So,
well, I'm not very social media savvy. I know Aaron is, and Jimmy is too. No, but I have an email list on my websites. The two websites allow me to do some web marketing, and I can basically blast an email out to my subscribers on the websites. And then I have a separate list for wholesale accounts for Japan and the mainland. So I can tailor an email just for my Japanese wholesale accounts, and I can tailor an email just for my mainland wholesale accounts.
I guess. For me, I guess we are using MailChimp. So we're just trying to collecting all the data and start mailing out a certain event that we're going to be having here locally. And for Japan, it's like pretty much Facebook and Instagram right now. Yeah, so like you was asking about like pre-ordering stuff. Yeah, I do a lot of those because a lot of my client, sometimes they see me in a booth, they don't have time to actually talk to me because I'm busy either demonstrating something. And then maybe afterward, they will actually make the arrangement with my partner on the other end. And then I will come to meet with them face to face and try to take something what they want out of their head, like what they want to have, that they're actually trying to create. And then I will put that into a piece of paper and draw it out for them. And then that's how I go about doing my custom order stuff. So it's pretty much pre-ordering stuff for me. Like I'm gonna go back again in Nagoya show, but I already have like so many of the pre-order I had to make for a client that they order prior before I go in. So that's my business. So I do a lot of those, not just selling off the, on the show part, because you can get like one show you can actually like have something there, and then you will sell almost everything. But and then sometimes when you go to the next show, it's like you have the same products, nothing is sell, you know. So it's like miss, and you can hit one time and you miss the whole boat sometimes. So that's. But I noticed like people in Japan love customize and handmade stuff, so they will want to kind of give you what they want, because they see a lot of Hawaiian jewelry out there. It's all templating, so you can just walk up to a jewelry store and then, you know, you just have to do whatever the store tell you to do. But for my marketing part is pretty much customized. That's my goal. So they get what they want, you know. So that means I have to fly more often, because some people are like willing to wait for 6 months to get their finished product. So that's the positive thing on my business. And yeah, so everybody will be different, I guess. For you, you know, you take client out, you know, so the same thing with me too. So they would normally tell me, oh, let's meet in the hotel lobby or something like that. There's a cafe there or something. Then that's how I normally do it. Or sometimes the rare one was in a train station, you know. So I mean, I have to log all my, you know, luggage and trying to get all the sample out to them. So that's different. So
you two, Aaron and Tom, you could actually sell product while you're there.
Yes.
These guys can't necessarily, right? It's just doesn't work that way.
I wanted to say one more thing before I have to leave, but really quickly. Yeah, we can sell our product, but these trade shows, the whole point is to collect business cards. And you have to have a filing system for your business cards that you collect, because like Jimmy said, you have 500 of them. So I have my filing system of Ziploc bags, and I put like 3 of them. Not much potential, and definite. But the ones that have no potential, I still put their email into my system, because you never know, maybe 5 years or 7 years down the road, there'll be a potential. So just file it and then blast out an email before the show, and then if they come, they come.
So before you leave, speaking of filing then, what do you use? What kind of CRM or customer relationship
like I said,
management?
I have a Wix website, and it's been very helpful because I can do everything myself. But on the Wix platform, they have an email marketing tool. I used to use MailChimp and stuff like that, Constant Contact. But their marketing, Wix.com.
WIX.
Yeah. And basically, I'm not paying them monthly for that marketing, because it's the emails will look, you can make a template and you can have it either look like your website or whatever you want and blast out that email. And so I enter all of my email addresses and contacts into the Wix platform. And I don't have to have Constant Contact or MailChimp.
How long does it take you after a show to get that information into the database?
You have to try and blast out a thank you to everybody, like within a week or so that they don't forget you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was hoping you would say that.
Yes. You have to contact whoever you got your business cards. You have to put that into your system, and you try and get that email out that week. Sometimes if I'm in the mainland and it's slow, I'll put it into the system through my laptop right away, and then I'll say, thank you for meeting me today. You know, I'll say, if it's a potential, like a definite, like they got a chance, then I'll tell them that day, thanks for meeting with me, here's my contact information again.
How about Aaron or Jimmy on your side, because you really need agents in Japan for your business or internationally for your business. Are you relying on your agents to send thank you notes, or are you also doing it?
So I rely on my agent in foreign countries, you know, for sure. And then, you know, as far as, you know, paying for lists and services, you know, I've participated in opportunities where we've met selected buyers, and it's never materialized at this point, just because I think my distributor already has a network he's comfortable with. However, I am considering using stuff like the Gold Key service for new markets. to where we don't have a Hawaii delegation necessarily going up and supporting us. But that would be specifically to find another distributor. So not necessarily stores, but finding someone who can set up logistics for me. Because otherwise, if there's no logistics, there's no sense. So there's no sense that I even try the market.
Just to be clear, what the Gold Key service that Jimmy is referring to is a service provided by the U.S. Department of Commerce, and in the embassies or consulates around the world, there will be commercial service officers of the U.S. government, and they have a service that they call a Gold Key service, where they will help you find some potential customers or distributors, or do some rough market research. And it's not free, but it's reasonably priced, around $700 for the initial Gold Key service. That's what you're referring to. Okay, great. Aaron, before we jump onto the next subject, did you want to talk about social media? Because you're probably the most aggressive of the group.
I'm the rookie, I think, in this group as far as trade shows, because my first year was only several years ago, and I went up with my goal wasn't the return on the sales, it was actually find a distributor. And while I was there, I made my goal on what kind of people I wanted to work with, who did I consider an extension of our team here, but in Japan. And during all those shows, I found out they don't like the packaging, they didn't like this product, they didn't like the way I displayed this. There was all these different feedback, and I went, whoa, I guess I'm not ready, or I think I'm ready, but it's a different market. And then the next time I went, it was completely different. I changed some things. I came back home, changed some things, went back again. And then even like Tom said, it was my first time last year going to a different prefecture, and it was a completely different experience again. So I think the idea of putting your goals out there is super important for you to know yourself and what you're gonna stand by, but then at the same time when you're there, you have to be open to kind of like what Jimmy said about they're going to give you all the feedback, because it's completely different. Even like what Aaron was saying about that, his Ziploc bag system, I love that, is the first year I was so excited. I got every single card, and I wrote back to every single card. And when I had a distributor, I showed them my pile of cards, and they went, no, 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 yes, and no, no. And I realized, like, oh, what does that mean? So we always have to communicate constantly, because they know, I'll tell them, I want to meet these people, and I want to be in this market, and then they'll say, too much, cannot, or let's focus on this first. And so it's really good if you have that kind of relationship with somebody there, and it doesn't have to be a distributor. I walked around to all the Hawaii booths when I was there, and all I did was talk to everybody else from Hawaii. That's how I know these guys now. It's just like, oh, how many years have you been doing this? How's it going? What's working? They would even come up to my booths and be like, your booth doesn't look good. I'm like, what? And they would say, come to the 100 yen store with me, and you need to buy some display stuff. So being very proactive about who you are and what you want to do, but then also being open to people who have more experience than you, and they'll tell you, and it makes a significant difference. I have like a whole bunch of notes from them, because this works. I know it works because they've been doing it and they're still doing it. For social media, we love social media because we do love meeting the people, and people in Japan will follow us on social media, but they never come to Hawaii. And then when we go to Japan, it is pretty a phenomenal experience seeing them come up and say, hey, I follow you, I love you, let's take pictures, let's talk, I want to tell you about me. And it's pretty incredible. And sometimes they do come to Hawaii. I've had people come to Hawaii, and then they follow, and then, because I will tell them, oh, I'm coming to Japan. So then they'll follow on Instagram, and then they'll say, I'll come see you. And I'm like, oh, cool, you live by Tokyo? And they're like, no, but it's a 2-hour train ride on Shinkansen. And I'm like, oh, then you don't have to come. But they're like, no, we want to come see you. So it's like, wow, like you are actually making some kind of impact on other people's lives. So it's a responsibility when you go to, like, how you're representing not only your company, but like Hawaii or just your families, because that trade show and being in a booth is like, it's not putting on a show. It's like really putting on, like being the face and saying this is what we represent and this is what we do. So I think you got to know that before you go to. Is that what you're
Yeah, that's fine. I'm very
get
curious
off
about
tangent.
social media. All right, let's jump ahead. Any questions before we get into, sir?
I would like to, you said you had a business partner in Japan.
I think a friend. Yeah.
It makes your job so much easier.
Yes.
So if you can get contacts to do the logistical groundwork and all of that, find all the details of the trade show, measurements of the booth and all that kind of stuff, how do you get guys like that? Do you get maybe go on Craigslist looking for a business partner in Japan? How do you pay them? Do you fix it up? If you get so many paying customers, do you pay them a salary or what do you do?
You can do a subcontractor, W-9. Also, why I actually play table tennis, so that's how I got to know her when she was a law student here. So we kind of like hit up, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, I think this business will work in Japan." So, in a sense, it was kind of lucky for me that run into a friend to playing sport, I guess. Yeah.
You didn't have that friend.
If I don't have that friend,
And
that's.
you wanted to get a business partner, you kind of like advertising crazy.
Yes, I would have to probably maybe some kind of social medias or probably have to see agent. But you can also go to, I think there's a program, I think they have like for the foreign company that are actually looking for someone for agent so they can actually find.
Jetro or one of
Jetro,
those,
yeah,
yeah,
uh-huh.
is a Japanese organization.
Do you pay them on a commission basis or salary? Or
Actually commissioned, actually, but I using her as a like a subcontractor. So every shows, then whatever percentage we make the sale, and then she will get a cut. So that will be my way of doing business with her. So.
if you never had that business partner,
Then I would go to Jetro. Yeah, that's another program that they have for the foreign business company. Yeah, so they will help you actually look for your partner, I guess.
Can I say something? But the cool thing about Hawaii is if you don't have, if you need somebody who speaks Japanese, also you just can't just have somebody who's really good at English and Japanese. You need somebody who knows the culture, you know how the northern Japan or how the countryside is. It's easy because Hawaii, a lot of Japanese come here, they live here, they study here, they go back, they're looking for something to be the bridge to connect and be here. They even try to marry somebody to stay here. So it's easy to find somebody. They'll jump on. You could interview, I have several friends who interview people here who's a student, and they're willing to expand their business. And they do that in part-time. And then it gets like the magazine there. She goes to Japan, interview people, and get that person there in charge. And that's how they hire too. If you're gonna do a low budget, that's according. This is just an example I have. So you could do that. We're just in a lucky island that you could find these Japanese people who have both cultures, knows both cultures.
We tend to talk about Japan at our events here just because so many Hawaii companies are interested in Japan. But what if you were selling, chocolate, what if you're selling it in France or Germany, right? A lot of the lessons we're going over here are relevant for someplace other than Japan, but you just have to look at the local flavor there and see what is different about that market compared to other markets that you're involved in. Have you ever tried anything in Europe? That would be interesting. Okay, let's jump ahead to the section on during the show. What do you do during a trade show? Well, surprisingly, when I started my career, we didn't have these things, right? And I see constantly now when I'm at trade shows, people playing on their phones. And when you're doing this, what am I not doing? I'm not looking at my customers, or I'm not smiling, or I'm not whatever. This is one of the most off-putting things in the world, in my opinion, is to be at a trade show and I'm sitting at the booth and I'm kind of like this, all the customers are walking by and I'm over here just checking the baseball scores or whatever. What's worse than that, right? So try to keep your phone away from you. Try to stand. It's not easy, especially for a 4-day show. to stand 10 hours a day for 4 days, plus all the work you're doing, moving stuff or whatever. But try to stand. If you're doing that, wear comfortable shoes, or work with your partners in the booth to figure out some breaks, you know, so you can get out and go to the restroom, get a drink. You're mostly in air conditioning, and don't forget that that'll dehydrate you. So be drinking water and juice and things like that. But stretch, you know, stretch out your calves. That kind of stuff is quite simple, but try not to sit at the booth, because I think it's very uninviting for customers to come in, right? And then there's just some common things. If this were open here and we had walls back here, you probably don't want to be standing here blocking people from seeing your posters or your displays. There's kind of some common sense things, but think about it. You know, try to stay away, but look inviting. Try to smile. Don't look so glum. You know, trust me, I've seen a lot of people are very disinviting into the booth, so keep that sort of thing in mind. I think it's nice to have, if you have a product like chocolate, obviously people are coming up to your booth hoping, oh my God, I hope she has samples of the chocolate. But if you have other products that aren't necessarily edible, it's nice to have a little bowl of candy or something that sort of brings people in, gets them up to the booth. Get ready for your business card exchange. We're sort of focused on Japan here, but learn how do they exchange business cards in other cultures. In the US, we tend to be very, very casual, to the point of almost like throwing somebody a card. It's ridiculous, right? Really, really ridiculous. And probably in Japan, I think maybe Korea is the most formal with the exchange of the business card. Learn how to do that before you go to the trade show. In Hawaii, I've seen people from Hawaii will meet people and really sort of hug them at first or whatever, but in Japan, you know, maybe you want to rethink that strategy. It's better to just learn the way that they do things locally and be prepared. So business cards, don't treat that casually. I don't know, how many do you take? Would you take to TIGS? 500, 1,000? 1,000 business cards? I mean, you can never have enough, right? If you run out, it's very embarrassing to be somewhere, say Japan, for example, say, sorry, I ran out of business cards, because you're kind of telling those people, you know, I didn't plan very well ahead, so our business relationship, I'm probably not going to plan things very well. So make sure you have lots and lots of business cards. It's good to have Japanese on one side and English on the other if you can. Notice I put a QR code on my card so somebody could just scan it with their phone, and all my contact information goes right into their database. The QR codes are more popular outside of the US than they are. A lot of us too, I see this at trade shows, especially by the fourth day, a lot of us think we're blessed with the greatest breath in the world, and we're not. And especially when you're up shaking hands or talking to people very closely, just carry some Altoids or something with you for those long days. How about you guys? What do you do at a trade show? I could see Tom like this, maybe, this guy. Would you go up to that booth? How do you, do you have any things you've learned over the years about how to act at a booth? I mean, you guys are all really busy at a booth, doing demonstrations and things like that.
Right, I don't have the time to do that, that's for sure. Because I constantly on my hand and either engraving something. Yes, definitely you have to stand up and trying to be friendly. I guess your face is tell the whole story if you are kind or not. So especially from Hawaii, you gotta have, you know, that posture, you know, sincere and with aloha.
What kind of clothes do you wear?
I'm actually, we have like our own Lahana shirt like she's wearing. So, but depending on what show we go, I think Hankyu we have to like dress with aloha shirt and, you know, yeah, certain attire. So depending on where you go, depending on what show you go. So, like when you outdoor show, of course, you don't want to wear something very hot, because Japan sometimes it can be very, horrendous, So you want to be sure that you dress comfortable because you're going to be there, couple days, and it's a long hour. For me, I'm kind of lucky because I just there at demos. I get a chance to sit down, So, but of course, the client want to talk to you. You have to, trying to get up and talk to them because that's what you're there for. You represent your company, so you have to put, professional face on.
I mean, yeah, I think I think just general etiquette is really important because yeah, I don't put chairs in my booth generally. That's why people don't like working with me. But it's just make them stand, and and same with our store. Our store, you'll never go to our cash register in our store and see anybody sitting down diddling on their phone. Even just like some of the local shows here, right? Everybody's got their zip pack, and you're grinding a booth, but just take the time, go eat somewhere else, and actually one of the things for me while I'm at the show is, and I don't do this locally, but I go and walk the show itself, and check out the other booths and just see what you're up against. I mean, the first time I did that at like even the fancy food show in San Francisco, I was like, oh crap, I don't belong here. I mean, I'm trying to hawk, $8 bags of chips, and, these guys are giving away like plates of brisket and smoked salmon, and, I mean, it's crazy. So just know what you're going to be up against, and that's always something I try to do when I travel out for a trade show. I just carve out the time and just walk the show itself.
Ideally, I would have all what Rob said put together already, like all of this. So I applaud you for even being here because you're taking the initiative to do something before you go. Otherwise, it is figuring it out as you go. I'm actually going to do our Instagram this year through our My Story being at the show. So you can see what I'm experiencing while I'm there. And it's gonna be constantly our My Story. So at Shokulea Hawaii, it'll be more professional. So you're gonna see like, oh, we're at the booth. And we did this last year and everybody loved it because, not everybody gets to go, but a lot of local people wanna see what we're doing because they post their ramen and they post the temples. And I'm like, oh, I never go to that. And they're like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'll show you what my trick is, which is going to 7-Eleven and buying 3 musubis and then making sure if it's tuna that I have the, the mint and all that kind of stuff. And it's I guess it's entertaining. For me, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure it out as we go, but it's entertaining, I guess. So on the Shokulea Hawaii side, we are going to show like, oh, we're at our booth. We're so excited to be here. Now we're doing an interview or those kinds of things. On my personal Instagram, which actually is public, is the other side. So I show there now like, okay, we're meeting about Japan. This is the first year I'm taking staff up, and I'm taking 2 different staff members up to different shows. And so for the first time, I can't wing it. I have to like take all this and teach them everything that you're learning, which is, okay, these are the expectations. We need to check our breath before we go. We need to make sure we're not sitting. We need to make sure we're, the things that I might assume is what we should do, I can't anymore. So hopefully it'll be a helpful tool, if not at least a lot of laughs, on what to do or not to do, or in a glimpse in it. But I'm also open to a lot of feedback. So if you can message me back like, that looks crazy, aren't you? Or why are you wearing that? Or what are you doing? And this is too much, or this is not helpful in any way. I actually really want to hear that, because the point of going for us too is not just for the company, but it's really like to help other companies, like to help you folks and to help just people who are interested in doing new things. Like, how did you get through it? Because it's really daunting the first time. I only survived because everybody else told me, don't expect to find anybody for the first 3 years and plan on going 3 years before you quit. And that's what they told me. And I was like,
what do you, as the only lady, sort of non-slob here on the panel, what do you wear a uniform? What do you guys wear at Shokulea now at the booth?
Yeah, well, I started with a polo shirt.
And shoes.
Shoes? Oh, shoes, loafers, like loafers, or really nice flat kind of sandals with a slight heel that have thick straps or whatever you're comfortable in. Just try it here at Made in Hawaii for 3 days and then times that by 3. Yeah.
But then, are you wearing polo shirts or what? Are you
We did. I wore polo shirts the first year, and then because I thought every company wears polo shirts, and then I saw people in Aloha gear, and I went, oh, I can wear Aloha gear. So now I try to wear other local brands. So I'm always like talking to my other, like I just texted one of my friends who owns a clothing company here and said, are you going? If not, I'll come shop and I'm gonna wear her stuff, just to get feedback for her business if people like my clothes, which still represents Hawaii and follows our own dress code. So
Do-
We showed up suit and tie for the first couple of times, and you know, I mean, you blend in with everyone else, but then you blend in with everyone else, and you know, I think part of, you know, kind of what everybody's been sharing here is, you know, one of our advantages with our products being from Hawaii is the fact that Hawaii is part of our branding, and so, you know, they don't think about suits and tie. They want to see you in the Aloha shirt. That makes you authentic. I mean, rubber slippers and surf shorts, maybe not, but definitely the Aloha shirt, and that also goes with our presentation. You know, the presentation has to be Hawaii, welcoming, aloha, you know, and all those good vibes. You know, even our generous culture. I mean, you know, the guy is passing out salmon, smoked salmon, to sample his cracker. So how generous do I look handing out a itty bitty piece of taro chip or potato chip? You gotta exude that Hawaii and that aloha, and that's what ultimately is going to justify that price point, because we're going to charge a premium for our products because we got to ship it halfway across the ocean either way. You know.
Are all of your staff wearing the same kind of polo shirt then, or are you coordinated that way, or how does that work?
If we do go with our company polos, yeah, we'll all wear at least, we'll all coordinate the same thing. Like, you know, we'll wear the company polos. We don't necessarily go through matching colors or anything like that yet. Although for branding purposes, probably not a bad idea. When we do the Aloha wear, it's just Sunday best or whatever, you know, or business best, you know.
Tom, I know you guys like black. Does everybody wear black?
There's red.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty much.
But the cool thing is, we have these continuous customers, and they want your shirt that says Lahana, that says Tom. I got my jewelry from this designer. That's a sell too. Sometimes I think it's like, Tom, this is too expensive. It's like they buy it. They
No,
want it.
that's good marketing,
Yeah, it's marketing.
viral marketing.
Just for, you don't have to be all lauhala and all these, you know, things. You don't have to have flowers, but just putting one thing that is so like the $2 kind of flower, it's a sell. They go for it.
I would sell the shirt off my back.
Ambiance of Hawaii. They're selling the ambiance. They jump on that. Yeah.
Well, you just hit the point. I mean, pretty much, first you have to be comfortable what you're wearing, but of course it has to be in a tasty manner. Depend on where you do the show, and I think they have the dress code, so you just have to follow that. But if you don't, you know, just pretty much a laid back. I think Hawaii is pretty laid back culture, so people in Japan that come to you, they really want to share their experience, and that's the thing. So we trying to give them that, you know. So you don't have to be like just in the suit and tie for us. So that could be really out of place. So for us, you know, so yes, aloha wear is very important. If you go to like, I guess Hankyu, right? There's a dress code that you need to do. I actually still looking for aloha wear actually, you know. So if you guys know any of the local company, okay, maybe we come to see you. So that's.
I'd like to make a point where Jimmy said earlier about when you're at the show, use it to walk around and check what's going on. I can't stress that enough because a lot of people I know, they like to just go to the booth, stay in the booth. When the show ends, they run out of there and take the quickest bus to the airport and come back to Hawaii, right? But I think that that's really the wrong strategy. You need to, while you're at the show, go walk around and see the competitors and see the pricing and the packaging and just look around. Who's doing what? But then after the show, or if you get there a couple days before the show, go out in the city and look around and see where would your products be sold, or other similar products, and what is the price, what is the packaging like? Have you guys ever done anything like that?
Well, for me, I guess we're still learning how to do the packaging. Still trying to figure a way out on that. We have our own, like a gift box and stuff like that. But in Japan, I think you have to go extra mile. Everything's so neat and nicely packaged. So we're trying to figure out how we're gonna do it. Still ongoing. So.
Can I get that back? I'd like to show everybody. I figured it would be empty. I was. Thank you. So, particularly in Japan, you can look at old videos here of marketing in Japan where I talk about packaging and what have you, but Aaron's very smart to have this. If you're selling something in Japan and you don't have a bag to deliver that product, you're not going to sell very many. It's good to have matching bags. You cannot give just a pure chocolate to somebody, your friend or your colleague or your mother or anybody. You couldn't just say, oh, here, like a business card, right? It really should be in a nice bag, and Erin's done really, really well with her packaging.
I think exploring market is really, really important. It's key, and if you can, stay an extra day or go a day early. As my wife found out, every trip is a business trip, because it means whether it's dropping off samples on the way to our honeymoon in LA or just staying an extra day after a trade show. But yeah, definitely checking out the market, because that's actually a lot of how I shaped what I do here in terms of how I'm gonna build that export demand. Because for me, it's a long play. Like I said, my goal is to turn our factory and our area into a world famous destination. So we get tons. So the goal is 10 years from now, we want tourists to come. Top 10 list in Honolulu. What do? After you visit Chocolea, you go visit the Hawaiian Chip Company, and we want to build that market demand with those tourists, so that when they go back to wherever they're from, whether it be Canada, Australia, Japan, then the demand is there for our products when we show up for these trade shows. But with that, we need to find out what's going to speak to these tourists while they're here. So by going into Japan, we actually found, wow, trying the senbei and all that in the streets, fresh made and all that. That's why I decided to start doing chips made to order right off the production line, so we can give them a similar experience, but with the Hawaiian flair, so.
No, that's great, Jimmy. The even like the bag, this is our sixth version of the bag. So it doesn't just pop up like that. We went to Japan, and the very first show, I felt really confident about what we were doing, and I actually got a lot of criticism for my packaging. So you can either kind of cry about it, or you can kind of be like, what are they talking about? And I walked around and I thought, well, this is the top seller in Hawaii. Why aren't they buying it here? And I'm competing against Europe, basically. I'm competing against the top chocolatiers from around the world who I needed to go and see and visit. And so I spent my time at the trade shows walking around, but also going to all the chocolate shops. So even, and then, actually just hanging out in their store and talking to them, and not being like sneaky or anything, just being like, hey, I own a chocolate shop in Hawaii. What's working here? What are you willing to share? What are people buying? What aren't people buying? And from repetitively talking to people and making those trips and stops at places during your free time to go and make these relationships, now they're very open. Where this trip, I'm going to spend the whole day with my production manager in another chocolate shop in their production. So we're going to go and watch how they make chocolates and how it's stable in their humidity humidity. And even from the relationships we've made over time, now the people that I have built that trust with, they'll tell me, Erin, we don't like this. Erin, nobody's buying this because of this. Erin, you cannot hug the boss. Don't hug the boss. You know, like things like that. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And you know, you gotta kind of just pick yourself back up if you made a lot of mistakes, because you are gonna make a lot of mistakes. But try to not make as much as possible, because it costs you a lot of money when you make mistakes. But then that's how the evolution of things come, is when people say things like, oh, Erin, we want cute bag. This bag not cute. And I'm like, what? So they're like smaller, and that's how we kind of evolved into this.
A couple of quick tips, and then I'd like to, if you guys could share anything you've learned. Again, this is during the show, things that you've learned. I found for trade shows that I go to, especially trade shows that I go to repeatedly, there will be a show manager. Somebody actually is coordinating that show. Try to find out who that person is and introduce yourself, and take them something from Hawaii so they will remember you. They could make your life very smooth if you plan to attend that show in the future, and help you get the best booth space, or just make things very, very smooth for you. Learn who are the key vendors at these shows, meaning who actually installs the carpet, or who makes the booth structures and things like that. If you're involved in one of the Hawaii pavilions, that's all fairly straightforward and easy for you to find, because DBED will have basically one contractor that does that. But if you're going to a trade show that's sort of outside of the Hawaii pavilion network, and just some random show in Brazil or Mexico or Europe or Korea or somewhere, these are tips I think that can be really helpful. Try to find out where is the nearest printer. I mean a physical printer, because it's quite possible you may have to print something up at that show, like a quick distributor agreement, or a pamphlet or a brochure or something, and it really helps to know where is a printer. Later after the show, you can usually get quite detailed attendance data. Most privacy laws won't allow the show vendor to share with you the database and the email contacts and all of that stuff, but you will be able to find, for example, there were 50,000 people that attended the show over 3 days. There were 40,000 from Japan and 10,000 from Korea and what have you. You can find out quite a bit of really good data about the show. And then if you were serious, you enjoyed the show, you thought you learned a lot, you can usually work with that person in step A to pick your booth space for next year, because they're trying to fill it quickly and get the booth spaces filled up for the following year. So after you do these shows enough, you'll find a certain rhythm, and it kind of gets built and baked into your schedule that, oh, we're going to TIGS in September. We do that every year. And so over time, you just sort of understand who the people are and what have you. But it's good to understand these people from the beginning. Do you have any comments to share about little tips you've learned over the years about attending these shows? What that you're willing to share with us? Maybe they're so secret.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any secret. You just have to be prepared, and especially the flyer. You need to get that done professionally. So because when you go to like TIG, most of those customers will be your future agent. So they want to know like your price list, or what kind of design you're making. So all that information has to be in that pamphlet. Because the show itself, sometimes when you're busy, you don't get a chance to really talk to them. Yes, you have to make that effort to do the flyer. It's so important to have that, for your business. So that's one thing that I know that's very important. And I think that Lori actually is my business advisor, so she have recommended me to do that. So it helped me a lot. So thank you, Lori.
Is your flyer, let's stay in Japan, is your flyer just in Japanese, or is it bilingual, or how do you do that?
It's bilingual, so half English and then half Japanese. So
you print it before you leave, or do you print it?
We print it before we leave, actually. We have somebody there does it for us. So we just kind of guessing like how many we're going to be passing out, so like 1,000. So we just make 1,000. So whatever is left over this year, is going to continue for next year. So we're just going to print out, additional to whatever we gave out last year. So that's how we do it.
Okay.
For me, it's just more mental preparation in terms of just being willing to be flexible and just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I mean, I've had samples held up in customs, and this and that, and some guys get sick at the last minute, they can't go, and you can't let that affect the rest of your show. You just got to find a way to navigate that, even though it's probably an uncomfortable setting, just can't, like it goes back to the etiquette that we talked about earlier. It's just like, all right, all hell's breaking loose and behind the scenes, but I got an important buyer here. Could be a multi-billion-dollar, well, maybe not billion-dollar contract, but it could be a very lucrative contract. And if I look like I just got run over by the trade show, it's probably not gonna have success. So.
I think it's awesome just listening to you guys because I have like a whole bunch of notes. So my tip is actually like do something with this. Because I know we get pumped up when we listen to things or you get discouraged, whatever, but you gotta do something with it because it's just not going to happen. And I know I'm gonna miss half of this list this year, and then I'll miss another half next year. But I'll at least remember a few things or take it with me and start implementing it here and somehow systemizing it so that it can be done again, because I'm kind of preparing myself to make sure that other people could have the experience or could do it in case like that, because that does happen. You get so sick and you're dying and you're like, I can't get out of my hotel room today. What are you gonna do? So there's always these different things that you can't plan for, and you kind of just have to be resilient and take it with, okay, I tried the best, I prepared the best that I can, and I'm just gonna implement what I'm able to do and then move forward from there. But asking for help is pretty massive for me because I really don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. Like, I don't know why I get asked to speak on panels. I guess because I'm like, I'm telling the truth. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so I come so I can listen to these guys that are all up here. And then so that I can ask you because you know things that we don't know. And then these are the resources in the room. Like he did a shout out to Lori and I'll shout out to Joe. Like there's different people in the room who have helped me just get to this point. And I know I'm gonna ask them for help again, and I'm gonna ask somebody else for help again because that's what they're here for, and it's for the betterment of pretty much all of us. So it's not looking at it as like, okay, I'm gonna just keep this thing. We're here to share because it is hard.
No, this is a very good point. I'd like to stay on it for a second, that a lot of people I meet who are going to a trade show, especially an international trade show for the first time, they think they're the first person who's ever done this before. And maybe in their household, they are the first person who's ever done this before. But in the bigger picture, they're not. And there's lots of people that they can learn from. It's one of the reasons we put on a seminar like this, or we assemble a panel of people who have done this before, because there's plenty of people you can learn from. It's not rocket science what we're talking about here, but there is a lot to think about. And so I hope that the panel and the experts who are in the room are available to take questions and mentor some of these people if they need it on how to attend a trade show, an international trade show. Real quick, I'm going to jump in to in some ways this is the most important part because this is where the money comes from after the trade show. We talked about this already, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but I would reiterate that you should get out and look around, both at the show, but then after the show, go out and into the city where you are and look and see how are things done there that are differently. But following up with customers, perhaps, again, the most critical step in all of this. When Aaron Lau was here, he talked about taking the business cards and putting them into Ziplocs, but eventually getting those Ziplocs into some kind of CRM or customer relationship management software and being able to send thank you notes and ongoing emails and targeted messages to the target market segment and figuring out who that target market segment is. We can spend a whole lecture just on marketing, and we have that on our YouTube archive about looking for your target market segment. But the point is, you need to get those addresses into some kind of database and use those addresses quickly and start marketing to those people, because they met you. They went out of their way to come and meet you and talk about your product and try some samples or whatever. So you cannot find a better potential customer than that. So please work on that quickly. Aaron had said he tries to get in contact with people within a week. Do you have any, what do you do with contacts when you find them?
That would be my other partner to actually make all those connections. She normally do personal to personal contact. So after the show is over, and then she will either give them more notice of when I'm coming and my schedule. So of course you have to, thank them for coming. So that's very important, because some of these people that come to my show, we have like a private showing called Family and Friend event at the office. So some of them, takes 2 or 3 hour plane in the train ride to come and meet me. So it's very important for you to acknowledge that and to make them feel, appreciated for them to come down. So yes, we make a lot of effort on getting that out there.
Yeah, for the foreign markets, I just let my distributor pretty much handle that, because otherwise I'm probably just gonna lose things in translation. But locally, I just key up the ones that I think actually have potential. So I'll here in the mainland, I'll maybe kind of follow up within the week, definitely. But with those 5 to 10 key contacts that you make, and then that's pretty much it.
I think for after the show, what I basically do is I do respond to everybody in that general mass kind of email. I do talk to the distributors about how do we do, and we reflect on the show, and then we talk about who are those kind of key people that maybe we both think there's that potential for the next step. We will try to either talk to them or they will go and meet them. So I bring up gifts for those clients that I'm thinking of that I would think would be a good partnership, and then I'll give it to my distributors with my card or with my information written, and then they go and follow up and have the meetings in Japan, because a lot of times they actually don't want to meet with me. I guess because I can't speak too, but they do want to. There's like a chain of command that's so different from here. We're just like, hey, good to see you, But it's like, oh no, talk to him, and then he'll talk to him. So I'm like, oh, okay. So trying to learn and respect that, and then so I give them the gifts, and then I always ask them like, hey, can I reach out to these people? Because here I Google, and then I see what name I can get, and try and talk to people. And then from there, I have a schedule throughout the year. So I kind of have a system for contacting certain people throughout the year, so that they know that I'm top of mind, that, hey, show is like 7 months from now. Am I supposed to be doing anything? Hey, show is like 5 months from now. Is the order coming in yet? And that helps, because honestly, I can't remember otherwise. It kind of has to be in a calendar somewhere. Otherwise, I forget. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to the show in a couple weeks. What's the order? Stress.
And actually, what you mentioned about the formalities, chain of commands, and all that, that kind of reminded me that just understanding who you're actually talking to at these trade shows is really important, because not everybody's a senior level decision maker. I mean, we once did this. We thought it was like the big buyer for this chain of stores in Japan, and I was already counting up the money, and we redid a whole label and line for this, and then we went and met formally at the office, where I got to meet the decision maker, and the decision maker said, nice product, but not interested, So I've still got 2,000 labels of whatever, if anybody wants to buy local moco sauce. But anyways, and then, also, I know I talked about the, hey, lower your expectations, this and that, but part of understanding market is also understanding how small Hawaii is, and sometimes, when I first started doing these trade shows, it was like, wow, I'm pinching pennies. I'm trying to just come up with the staff to man the booth, and I want to just give out a little bit of samples, but then certain opportunities pop up, and we had a big box store from Northern California say, hey, we want your products in our store. I need 8 containers delivered, in 3 months. There's no friggin' way we were gonna be able to fill that and not have product go bad. It sounded great, but then the reality is, I just don't have the infrastructure here in Hawaii to fill that kind of order. So that's what really kind of shifted my mentality as far as, all right, we're looking for specific stores, niche stores, and that's what the market study is like. Hey, is this going to be a good fit, or are we going to be overwhelmed, or figure out how do we approach it? So if 7-Eleven or Family Mart in Japan wants our products, well, that means we're probably going to just license the name and the brand. So that was kind of, I think I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but understanding market, not just, having low expectations, but real, what do you do if you get that huge order that you can't fill? Because that's the thing. They don't understand our scope and scale with what we're manufacturing here in Hawaii,
Part of our HiSTEP program every year is we run one seminar on scaling up operations just in case there was a large order like that. So please look for one that'll come up again next year, but in the archive we'll have at least a few videos on that exact problem. And Innovate Hawaii is a local partner. If you run into that issue, you contact them, and they have programs to help you, walk you through that. Okay. All right, that's basically the presentation for today. So I'd like to open it up to questions. There's a bunch of online questions that have come in by the webinar and by text message. So anybody have any questions here before we move it? Please.
It's back to the social media. I was wondering, is there a source for tags that you use that fits the international clientele?
You mean hashtags? Japanese hashtags? Or?
Just like are there keywords, like even in your SEO manager, are there keywords that you're using that target you out of the mainland and Hawaii markets and over there? Have you found anything that you think works better, or just is there a
well, for sure, Aaron is a great social media person, but the way that we do it in my company is we definitely have to use Japanese hashtags, right? And they're usually very different from the English hashtags, and there could be a combination of katakana and hiragana and kanji. There'd be Korean hashtags and there's Brazilian hashtags, and that's one thing that I think Twitter and Instagram have done really well, is internationalize the whole hashtag part of their platforms, right? And I think what I'm going to say to you is not the easy answer that you wanted to hear. Like, it should be easy to generate hashtags in Japanese, but it's not. You need somebody who can really help you with the language in order to figure that out. Fortunately, when you put in, I'm old, so I say pound, but when you put in hashtags sign and you start typing in the correct Japanese, you'll get the number of hits for that particular hashtag, right? So if you get down to like, there's only 2 people who have used that hashtag, that's probably one to avoid. But when there's 1 million who have used that hashtag, then use it. So Hawaii in katakana, that's a huge hashtag. Simple things like that. You can just start putting in a few to draw some attention. And you can just, if you can't type Japanese yourself, you can just set up a quick cut and paste in another program and just drag it over for Hawaii, Oahu, Honolulu, Waikiki. What is your particular product? Oh, really? So tumbler is a word that would translate into Japanese. You could use that, but well, we can talk after. But I have some ideas about how you could do it. Do you have any comments?
Don't use Google Translate. It's going to
Yeah. No, don't do that. It is. That is a rabbit hole. You.
Even in Hangul, Korean, don't Google Translate. It's gonna take you to a, and it's gonna give you that image. It's like, oh my God, it's so gaijin, you know. So don't do.
Yeah.
Google Translate. I'd rather ask a student, an international student at UH, and say, can you translate this? That'll work more.
I don't know the magic thing, but I know that I look at other Instagrammers that have like more followers and more international presence, and then I look at their hashtags, and then I started with that, and then we use the HiSTEP to just have somebody translate our keywords that we use in our promotional material. So now that I have that Excel sheet, I can copy and paste that with that keyboard, and using just at least like the 5 or whatever, but I know you need 30 hashtags to hit the algorithm. So unfortunately that kind of takes like research. Like you have to, Instagram's constantly changing. How do you get on their algorithm? So it's like you have to have the initiative to kind of keep looking like how do you get there? And that's all I know right now is 30. Because I put like 10 and then I get in trouble for not putting enough hashtags.
You guys have any comment on that?
No, I just found out that people have been direct messaging me on Instagram, so I do not have any thing I can share to help with social media.
The same would go with me too.
You're still catching up with messages from 2010. Okay, that's great. Any other questions, please?
Aloha, we are Chris and Cora Chang from Corridorables, Hawaii. And if any of you, like you mentioned, are looking for high-end Aloha wear and to partner with at any of these shows, we're happy to partner with you all. We're asking a question in regards to customs and shipping. What method, because we're doing clothing, of course, would you recommend for us to get our items? Because we're going to Osaka in July, and then, of course, TIGS again in September. So how would you recommend we handle customs and shipping?
Oh, you know, for me as a food product, I just use my distributor. So he handles everything, and you know, being food specific, we're actually trying to get a new flavor cleared for the upcoming TIG show and hopefully Hankyu. But that's quite a process, and I leave that to my distributor. Depending on how much product it is, a lot of times I'll just bring a case and just declare it as omiyage. You know, it's just easier.
What flavor is the new flavor?
Maui onion. So, but for like Japan, they want to know all the specifics. Like here, you can put natural flavor. They want to know what exactly is the natural flavor. I had one instance where we have a silicon dioxide, which is part of our paprika. And it's just a free-flowing agent. It's considered all natural. They wanted to know the particle size of the silicon dioxide. And that was a nightmare, but luckily I played soccer with the chief scientist at McCormick, so he was able to get me that information. Yeah.
There's plenty of clothing manufacturers that we can put you in touch with who've done exactly what you're trying to do before. The one that comes to mind is Nina Tai from Angels by the Sea, and she could tell you the details about how she ships all of her clothing from Waikiki to Tokyo or what have you. But clothing is not, while it might be heavy, it's not difficult to ship from a custom standpoint or what have you. Raw textiles are different, but processed textiles into clothing is not an issue at all. And there's plenty of shipping options. If you do it far enough in advance, depending on the volume, you could ship it by ocean quite cheaply, but probably you're shipping it by air. And then there's, you know, the UPS or FedEx know how to do that very well, or the Japanese companies like Sagawa or Yamato Transport or Nippon Express. There's plenty of options.
We have staff coming from Hawaii going there, like enough of us, and we can take 2 to 3 bags on the plane. Is it not recommended that we take, because I know that there might be a custom issue.
That's what I would do, as long as they're samples and you're not planning to sell them there. Oh, well, that could be slightly different, but I don't see it as a major issue. Most people would do it that way.
So we went to Takes last year and we actually brought products through our luggage system. And when we landed, we didn't have a direct flight. We had to stop in Haneda. So that was the problem we had, that they had to open up our suitcases in Haneda and then repack it, take our luggage out, and check back in another in Narita or something. But they opened all of our suitcases. We had 9 suitcases, and so it was, if you can get a direct flight, that would be better.
Well, I think personally, if I'm carrying 9 suitcases, I expect to be investigated somehow. But you know, something. Yeah. You've crossed over from omiyage to smuggling or something at that point. I don't know. Oh.
We told them that we were just doing demonstrations and classes, and so we passed.
This part of my booth.
A question that came in is, this is a tough question, but I think it's an important one. You have the Hawaii Pavilion shows, which you do, and the costs of that are fairly well understood. But let's say you're out of that and you're going to something we haven't talked about today, some expo in, I don't know, Singapore, for example, or Hong Kong. What would be the budget? What would you plan on spending for attending just some random trade show? Do you have any idea?
Well, for me, probably be in maybe about $6,000. That's the amount that I would gamble. Same thing as like advertising or
So what's
branding.
included in that $6,000?
I guess the booth space, hotel, you know, airline fee, and then a couple worker, car, transportations.
I would have said a little higher, but that's
For us, it would probably be in the $12,000 to $15,000 range. Just because we've done some trade, like if it's a small fair and whatnot, then yeah, you can probably get by with a cheaper booth fee. But we've actually attended somewhere the booth fee itself was like upwards of $6,000. And that's why it's, we are lucky to have, thank you, Jamie, and, these guys setting up our Hawaii pavilions and taking advantage of that, because the value that we're getting to be able to participate for even, what is it, $900 or something, it's an unbelievable discount. But then from there, you just need to make sure you staff the booth. So yeah, travel and all that stuff, that's another $5,000 depending on how many people you take. We have to save on the amount of hotels and save on taking people. We've hired people at other locations, but then there comes a expense because they may not end up being what they presented in their profile, So you definitely have those challenges too.
so 12 to 15,000 would include sending samples and all of that sort of stuff.
That would pretty much cover the most, and even allow for a little bit extra for emergencies. The emergency shipment or whatever you need to do to get things going.
Okay. Aaron, what do you think? How much was it? How much do you think it budgets for Hankyu, for example?
I don't know. I was actually going to pass on this question with the other shows because I'm not sure. But Hankyu, thankfully, yeah, the booth, those things it's a lot more affordable. I mean, airfare was like 1,500 one person to get there, and then hotels were looking at $100 a room, and then per staff, or you sleep together, and or share a room.
Thanks for clarifying that.
I don't know, 5,000,
That's
6,000.
I would think that's about right.
Depends how elaborate your booth setup is. Depends how many samples you take. Depends how many gifts you take. Those are all costs.
Sure,
so.
sure, sure. But that's what I want everybody to understand that so they can put together a budget. As they said, the Hawaii pavilions that are sponsored by DBET are such a fantastic value. I don't think people really realize that, what you're getting, because it's a package deal. As I said earlier in the presentation, if you were just buying some raw space somewhere at some random trade show in Singapore, you have to stand up the booth, you have to pay for the signage, you have to pay for the carpet, you have to order a table, a chair, a literature rack. All of that stuff has an individual price. And it'll come up to, $10,000 pretty quickly. Then you add in your airfare and your hotel and your food and your local transportation, then shipping the product and printing the brochures, printing the business cards, getting staff or translators if you need them, that sort of stuff. And so $15,000 comes around pretty quickly. And if you can do TIGs in the Hawaii Pavilion for, with airfare and all that stuff, somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000. It's a pretty remarkable deal, actually. So I hope that answers the budget question. Yes, please.
For me, I could go in and say, I'm just visiting my family. It's omiyage. It works. But like for people who obviously are not Japanese, how do you go in? How do these people go in? Like you cannot, like I have a friend who says I came to lecture, a workshop, got sent back home because it was illegal. He doesn't have a business visa. So how do just try out one trade show in Japan, and do you have to go get your business visa, or can you just slide in and try to get there to attend?
Well, fortunately, the United States has a close relationship with Japan. So it's a country that is not trying to exclude American visitors, right? They're not trying to find a reason to not let you in, right? So if you're going there for a trade show, there's thousands of people coming to different trade shows from the United States to Japan every day. Right? And all of them have some different reason to be there. Some people are carrying things in their suitcases to sell. Some are just coming to man the booth. There's a whole variety of things, right? So as long as you're coming there and you clearly mark on the immigration form that I'm coming for a trade show, and if you clearly say, I have samples that I will take out with me, it's no issue whatsoever. Where they will have issue is that if you're coming there and you have 9 suitcases of stuff you're planning to sell, and while you're selling it there, you're not paying any sales tax, it's all cash, and you're leaving with pockets full of yen, that's an issue. Like it would be if you were a Japanese and you're coming to a trade show in Los Angeles and you're leaving with pockets full of US dollars. It's same reciprocal kind of relationship. So I think as long as you keep that in mind, it would be different. If you're going to another country that may be looking for an excuse not to let you in, then that could be different, right? But a close relationship country like Japan is not that big of a deal. But you do need to make it clear what your intentions are. And if this is a kind of thing that you think you'll do every year, then why not apply for a business visa rather than just a tourist visa? Another question that came in, which is a good one. At a booth, do you have tiers of customers, meaning, oh, this is a very big potential customer versus maybe not. And so then with those tiers of customers, like tier 1, tier 2, do you have tier 1 samples versus tier 2 samples? Or, you know, how do you decide, like, I can only carry so many samples. I'm going to give this lady my best possible sample, but this guy, I don't know. And then this guy, of course, I'm not going to give him anything. Do you do that, or how do you handle that?
I definitely do that, and that's what I was talking about, some of the logistical challenges about bringing products to a trade show, because I lure everybody in with now I just give a whole couple of chips, and you get to try it out of the bowl. But if you're the buyer for Costco in Northern California or something, I'm gonna want to give you a product bag so that you can take that and try it and share it with the office or whatnot. So I bring up a secret stash that I'll put under the table or whatever, and once it gets through conversation, I'll generally give that product to the guy, and but then it comes down to fending off the other guys who are like, oh, can I get one of those too? Can I get one of those too? How do I get that? Well, you got to be important, and without saying, that you got to be important. I just say as a prearranged whatever, But yes, I definitely give out different tiers of samples.
Well, Aaron, is there different levels of chocolate?
Yeah, I got the same advice before I went, was bring some other gifts, and I said how many, and they're like however many can fit in your suitcase. So I put 5 cooler bags of things, and then had it, and they said keep this below, and then you only sample to people who are coming, or they'll tell me cut your sample smaller. So I had to go find scissors and cut it, because I didn't realize how many people come through. But then I know for me, I always just make sure I get their contact info. It's like Hawaii. People come in the store all the time, and I miss them. So the only protocol I have is if there's a complaint, or if somebody wants to say hi or anything, just get name, phone, email, or get the business card, because I'll run out or I won't pack, and then at least I can follow up and I can ship something later and then tell them to go deliver this to whoever. And then when I get the card, I kind of look at it, I say thank you, then I slide it like this, and then they will tell me they'll have a code, hit me and give them this, and then I'm like, oh, okay, because they know oh, this kanji says they're the buyer or whatever. And it's hard to tell. So if you just get all their info, at least the ball's in your court to do something and reciprocate, even if you don't have that tier of things with you. But
Great. Any questions from the audience here? Anybody online question? Okay, with that, I'll wrap it up with a final question is, can you, in maybe 60 seconds each, give some lessons that you've learned over time that you'd really like this audience to leave with? If they're going to their first trade show, what should they look for? And the thing I really enjoy about all 4 of you that were here is that I feel like you're people who are willing to learn, and you're not thin-skinned, that you go out there and you take the feedback and you accept it and you get better and better and better. And I think that with these trade shows, that's the attitude you have to have. If you're very thin-skinned and you're not available to take negative feedback and criticism, you're not going to do well at these trade shows. You're not going to enjoy it. And you have to go there and think, okay, what did I learn last year? And how can I make everything better and do better this time? And adjust your packaging or adjust your pricing or do this or do that. And I know all 4 of these people well personally, and I feel like they do that extremely well, which is one of the reasons I invited them here today. So with that, can you impart some wisdom on the masses? Things you've learned.
okay. I learned there's a whole nother world out there besides Hawaii and Manoa. just you're in the grind day to day. It's very busy. There's a lot of things to do. You have personal lives, you have work lives. You can't even determine which one is which sometimes. They're just overflowing and overlapping. Going to the trade show made me realize, holy cow, there's a world out here. The world is not the same as what it is back home. The people are different. And there's a lot of support in Hawaii that I wasn't even aware of because I was too busy doing just doing your thing. So going out to the trade shows actually opened your eyes. It made me appreciate Hawaii and the power of Hawaii and aloha and the things that people will say about Hawaii that I just take for granted from living here. So knowing that and coming back and improving your business and giving you that aloha spirit to kind of say, hey, this is much bigger than a sale. This is like we're making an impact on the world. For me, I would say first you need to know who you are as a business, as a person, because you're going to get lost because there's so many people that say so many different things to you. It's very confusing. And if you try to please everybody, you just won't win. So knowing yourself, knowing your mission, and then are you contributing anything? Because if you're not, then don't go. Because you're going to a trade show and you're sacrificing a lot to go. So you have to be going for a well-worth cause. Like you need to be doing something that's going to add value, whether it's to you and your company or your community or Hawaii or just to the people in that other country or other state. Otherwise, it's just a trip and then just go for vacation. So I think that's the difference.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, one tip I have is just before the show, eat a really hearty breakfast because if it's a good show, you're not going to have time for lunch.
Oh, that's a good point.
And then after the show, drink heavily. But and I'm just but what Aaron said, identity, knowing what your business is and all that's always been a big help too. Because again, I've tried to tackle trade shows when my business in Hawaii was really on the fritz, and I probably had no business trying to go tackle accounts where on the West Coast when my business in Hawaii was unstable. So I think having a firm platform here and being able to approach these shows now where, if I have a bad show, it doesn't really matter. I'll be okay, It's a lot more comfortable than trying to go up to the show and hoping that we make enough sales to pay for the airfare and the hotel.
For me, I think I'm going to go back to the custom. We run into this problem a couple years ago, especially with jewelry. I trying to take some sample out there, and you had to declare it. But I didn't know the conversion, yen to dollar. So they told me that you had to be like $2,000. Anything over that, then you have to pay custom. Either you have to pay it at the airport, or you have to go outside of the airport, and then you have to bond your package. So I learned the hard way. So I was thinking, okay, it's $2,000 value. So I declared $2,000 value. But because of the yen conversion have dropped to I think it was 113. So you multiply that, it went past the 200,000 yen. So then I had to go and pay for to leave my package in a bond company. And then I had to go outside of the airport from Narita. Takes me about 8 hours to clear those boxes. And they don't take any payment other than cash. So that was the hardest thing for me. So just be sure if you're gonna get some thing that you're gonna sample you're gonna take and you're gonna declare it and you think you're gonna sell it, be sure have those the currency exchange. That's what happened to me. So yeah, so I learned my lesson. So everything now I just ship everything prior for me to go to the airport. So.
I mean, generally there's a Hawaii coordinator for a lot of the shows, and I would check with the Hawaii coordinator. I think Neil Arakaki, he does generally the Tokyo Gift Show and stuff. He might be able to, Oh, for Hankyu, who's the coordinator for that one? Oh, okay. So yeah, I would check with them because that's who I kind of go to.
Okay, great. I'm going to wrap it up. Just very quickly, let's go through this again and thank my speakers. I really appreciate being here. Here's the Chocoleo website. Find them in Manoa. Here's Lahana Jewelry. Find them down off of Bishop Street, but you do lots of local shows and things. They're easy to find. Lahana, Lahana. Hawaiian Chip, well, let's go back to the Lala Woodworks. The main store where I visit him is on Kapahulu, but they have a nice one in the Ilikai Hotel too. And the Hawaiian Chip Company. There's a lot going on there in Kalihi. Go check that out. Very quickly, this is the DBET website to get involved with. There's an exporting tab here at invest.hawaii.gov. And somewhere I lost my Hawaii Pacific Export Council website. And then we have the YouTube archive of all of these videos will be on the YouTube channel for HPEC. And then I have a bi-weekly show called Exporting from Hawaii on the Think Tech Network, and we cover lots of topics here. You might see some of these companies look familiar on here. Oh, look, Chocolate is here. Okay, so thank you very much. I'd like to thank these guys. I'm sure they'll hang around for a minute and answer any questions individually, but thank you again so much. It was a wonderful seminar. We appreciate it. Everybody get out there, go to a trade show. Thank you very much.